It's the craziest compound ever, and I truly want to see bigger individuals with crazier genetics documented than me, because what is up, everyone? It's Russo. I hope everyone is doing well. Today's ASMR sip is some fitted Hawaiian nectar. Here's the nectar sip as I spill it. All right, today's topic. I'll be going into injectable SARMs because I'm trying to, get the vlog going. We'll say it like that, trying. But the injectable SARM log I'm shooting right now is going to be, paying homage to the first time I documented injectable LGD 4033 and YK11. I will be going specifically into dosaging and all that stuff. This is more a general topic of like, all right, if you're going to inject SARMs, not all of them are worth injecting, and SARMs in general, besides these two specific ones I'm going to highlight, probably aren't worth injecting at all. And I just wanted to go into basically what I've seen over the years with SARMs orally administered and injection administration, right? So most of these SARMs don't really need to be injected and don't have any bioavailability difference compared to the oral administration. And when you compare it to injecting, I wouldn't waste my time doing injectable S23 at all. Now with specifically YK11 and LGD, the game does change a bit with these two compounds. You notice the bioavailability difference increase with injectable LGD, and the other thing you notice is sex hormone binding globulin. So I'll have Andrew throw up sex hormone binding globulin. It's what transports your hormones around so there's not systemic inflammation recurring everywhere. We notice with roid users in general that SHBG can go way up if it's a testosterone only cycle. Your body's like, there's too much testosterone floating around. We're going to use sex hormone binding globulin to bind to the free floating test to render it useless so it's not active. Sex hormone binding globulin does not recognize SARMs at all. Thus, a sex hormone binding globulin crash can result in body acne, crazy systemic inflammation, hormones not going where they need to go and just binding randomly in places you don't want them to bind. Sure, having higher free testosterone means you feel it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's good for the body over long term as far as an inflammatory state. Going back to injection with SARMs, LGD 4033 seems to crash SHBG like no other if you administer it orally, theoretically. So oral administration, if you're injecting testosterone with it, the LGD is beating the testosterone to the androgen receptor and it's crashing SHBG, so all the free circulating test is converting to estrogen or DHT. I'll have Andrew find my acne thumbnail. I destroyed my skin younger, destroyed it. I had systemic acne everywhere, and I decided to ride it out and never do like a full Accutane cycle. I microdosed Accutane a little bit, but that's because I had no education on the S23 interfering with the amount of testosterone I was injecting, and I was basically causing my sex hormone binding globulin to crash while injecting tons of testosterone that can't be transported correctly, while the S23 was beating my testosterone to the androgen receptor I was injecting anyways, thus causing a watery look from all the estrogen conversion and ruining my skin from higher DHT conversion, DHT-based acne. This all needs to be taken into consideration when you're using these powerful SARMs. And let's not forget that with these SARMs, it's an exotic thing that I'm throwing in the mix, right? There's tried and true bodybuilding cycles that work. I wanted to feature YK11 because I feel like it's the craziest compound ever. And I truly want to see bigger individuals with crazier genetics documented than me, because it's a wild card. I'll have Andrew throw up Big Ron. Big Ron was addicted to the YK11. He was mind blown by the results of it, and I do want to throw that out into the mix. I definitely need to see more people document it before I really truly know what it's doing as far as how good it stacks up in the tier list. But I want to place YK11 in there and see what happens. With the injectable LGD 4033, the bioavailability is actually worth injecting. I believe the oral bioavailability off the top of my head is around 40-ish%. Crazily increasing it. With S4 injectable, I believe Alec Matrivsky injected S4 and basically went completely blind, meaning the bioavailability might be dramatically increased, but there's really no ploy to buy the injectable administration at all. And in fact, I wouldn't buy, in my mind, injectable Ostrine, injectable S4, or any of those, right? Any of the weaker SARMs that are for, like, we'll call it Natty Plus or TRT Plus. Those are just compliments if you're cruising on cycle. You're not trying to build this crazy bodybuilding physique, abusing those. That's really not how they shine in my mind. And when I injected Ostrine, it was like, you know, let's fail my liver quickly. Right? That's pretty much how it went down. And I got off injectable Ostrine again. I basically retracted out of all the injectable SARMs experiments because the Ostrine, my liver, I was holding it all day, right? It's not meant to be injected. Don't buy injectable Ostrine. There's no reason to go crazy with the dosages. You note with LGD 4033, you wonder if the oral administration is dramatically destroying SHBG at a rapid rate, and if you inject it, skipping the first initial pass through the liver, if that would keep your SHBG online. We don't know, but that's a theoretical thing around the injectable administration being so much better. When I do oral administration LGD, it's all documented over this channel. You can search my YouTube channel, use the search feature. I get a watery, puffy D-ball look. I'm accused of binging carbs, and it's really the SHBG crashing in my mind. It's the estrogen going through the roof, and nothing's getting transported around. I'm in an inflammatory state, and I'm just, you know, it's not going the way that you would want to go, especially when you're risking your body using these compounds. Now with the injectable, I get a hard, dense, dry look. I put a little bit of Sustanon around it. By a little bit, I mean 350, right? I'm not using over 500, a significant amount of test in my mind, but I can scale that LGD on top of it to a point where it's like, do I need my AR more stimulated? No. Like the LGD is so crazy injected that when I got up to 50 a day, I'm like, holy crap, like what I wouldn't need another androgen. Right? It was that bonkers. And the caloric intake had to be increased as my BMR was going nuts by having everything hyperactivated all day as far as the systemic AR go. And I would wonder the actual genetic freaks, if they would be kind of truthful around injectable YK11, what they would notice. Because when I gave it to Ron, that was my biggest guy in the LA Fitness. He abused tons of massive cycles before, and he fell in love with that compound. It like rewired his brain, and that's injectable YK11. And if you want to look into injectable SARMs, you can always search modern aminos, and coupon code Russo may or may not save you. So there's the plug. I won't be injecting S23. What I'm saying is LGD, when injected, seems to be more tolerable, and I have a dense, dry look. I look crazy. And when I stack it with injectable YK11, I look even wilder. My metabolism goes crazy, and I can actually recomposition my body rapidly within 2 weeks, and I have to use appetite stimulants to keep up with the caloric intake. Those are worth looking into injecting. The other SARMs that are TRT, Natty Plus, don't inject them. There's no point, there's no benefit. With these SARMs, when I was younger, I would find the dosing ceiling. When I got up to 60 mgs, around 50, 60 mgs of oral Ostrine, I'm like, my liver's killing me. I don't look any better in the mirror. Now with injectable LGD 4033, when I got up to 50 mg a day versus oral, it's a completely different look. I feel completely better tolerating it, and I actually look good in the mirror. With the YK11, it's the craziest dark horse compound that I go, wow, if it's doing this to me with my starting genetics as a long distance runner, I wonder how injectable YK11 will slot in with the top of the top from how wild it is. I'll probably jump into 2 to 4 units of growth hormone as I become more serious with my physique. There are bodybuilders who their job is to bodybuild who take 6 IUs of growth hormone a day. I do wonder if Tren combined with YK11 could change one of their looks to where they're in such an abuse pattern that there's a significant difference when the injectable YK11 is added in. I don't know. I would like to see and document it. If you're a genetic freakazoid and you want to come on this channel and you actually want to document it the right way with pictures and everything, and you want to go into your dosing experiences, I'll have Andrew list my email below, and you can compile something and we could get you on camera if you wanted to showcase your thoughts on injectable YK11. Oral YK11 still works. It's a pre-workout androgen, but with the injectable administration, the administration ability to administer subcutaneously, you really wonder if that would change the game or not, because YK11, if it does impact myostatin, which it seems to be doing something freaky, but there's nothing truly finite in the data that I can suggest, if it actually is moving the myostatin around, the myostatin somatostatin pendulum, you wonder, okay, is this wild horse compound that will go to the top? And from my experience, from Ron's experience, it's wild. I wouldn't powerlift on it. I would train like a bodybuilder, fluff work, high volume, but there's a lot of professional bodybuilders, that's what they do their whole life. I'm wondering if that progresses their physique faster and or modifies their genetics that they're fighting. Because remember, with using steroids for a long period of time, what is the true limiting factor that stops me from just shoving gear in me and continuously getting big? Why do you have to use more and more and more? Myostatin. Myostatin is that genetic limiting factor that stops your body from getting too muscular. It can't sustain itself. YK11 enters the chat. Okay, oral YK11 has an unstable oral half-life. It becomes like a pre-workout androgen. It works great. But when injectable administration hits, you're like, okay, I could trickle subcutaneous pin this for long extended periods of time with growth hormone trend on a traditional cycle. And it could be thrown in there as this wildcard compound that would be fighting the myostatin rising as I'm abusing an open pro level amount of gear. You wonder if that changes the game. You wonder if all the bodybuilders who are super juiced up doing machine work actually notice a difference, or they've all been doing it and we just don't know. We just don't know with the injectable YK11. Should I inject these? In my mind, there's no difference in the bioavailability orally versus injection that I see it worth injecting, right? I notice a big difference with the LGD and the YK11. This is based on my personal experience, as well as Ron's personal experience, who's a guy who is much, much larger than me. When we inject SARMs, we know that less is more. We had Colin featured on the channel, which I'll have Andrew throw up. Colin injected too much. His mind neurochemistry went to shit. We backed off the dosage to 7.5 milligrams. That's it. 7.5 milligrams of injectable LGD, and he's looking crazy, he's going bonkers, and you could always scale the rest of the traditional gear compounds around it. We don't need to see you injecting 80 milligrams a day of LGD and then your body can't tolerate it. You're overstimulating your central nervous system into oblivion. You're getting weaker. We see this with Trent all the time, right? If your central nervous system can tolerate the trend and you're this open genetic IFBB pro and you've been able to build up the CNS to tolerate it, great. If you're a broccoli hair who thinks injecting 40 plus a day of LGD is going to make you look better, it's going to fry your CNS. You're going to look flatter. When I would mess around with S23, I would pop it oral and I look good on 10 to 20 mgs a day. Oh, Russo wants to take 50 mgs a day as pre-workout and go crazy in the gym, right? I would end up looking smaller. My CNS couldn't tolerate it. It wasn't adapting. The DOM cycles were getting worse because I was loading an exogenous androgen load. That's insane. Don't inject most of these SARMs. And I even had a plug for it in this video, right? I love modern aminos, YK11, LGD. However, I don't think every SARM there's a benefit to injecting, and I don't want to see ploys of, oh, we have injectable SARMs now. There's very few that were worth injecting. Most of them are highly toxic. If you inject oral ostrine, you could probably fail your liver very quickly, and it's not safe anymore, right? When we look at the medical data, it was made for like old people to have a little trickle on top on their AR. It was made if you're cruising. I'm saying for high performance bodybuilding, where there's no rules and it's push it to the limit, YK11 and LGD in my mind are the only SARMs worth injecting. I will see you guys in my next video.